Officially coming with me. You got that high. To the club, girl, you can drink. You friends and we don't care what they think.
Welcome back. I am Trans Gamer Live, and you are here. We are starting a new day. And it would be out of character for me not to say, yes, we are. We're starting a new day with we have Jubilee. I've been wanting to get to these videos for a long time. A friend of mine suggested that I would go and watch another trans gamer and also activist named Samantha Lux. I fell in love with their content, and then Samantha has been putting on their channel Jubilee videos. And I got into watching the Jubilee videos, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And maybe I want to do it for my channel also and give my point along with theirs. Tag Jubilee in there. And if they want to, bring me onto the show, I'm more than happy. But yeah, let's go on into the video. This is Middle Ground, put out by Jubilee, and it is transitioning versus detransition. Let's go.
If you feel attacked by the opposite side.
First question was...
Raise your hand if you feel attacked by the opposite side.
Okay. Now there's a lot of attacks coming in from one side. One side hates anyone that is trans, basically anyone that's LGBT. And it's just, and I'm not saying like it's the one side as in every bit of the people, because I have a cousin and they'll probably see this, but I have a cousin that is a MAGA Republican, but don't care whether you're trans or not. But he's a very staunch MAGA Republican. But you go and look at what the new bills that are being brought up in like Agenda 47, Project 2025, and there is a strict outlaw to not only out trans people, but also out the LGBT and try to convert them over. And if not convert them, there could be a genocide on the way. So let's go ahead, and it's all the way through Project 2025. I've read the 928-page document of Project 2025. I also read Agenda 47. There is a lot of stuff that is similar, a lot of and some stuff that ain't. On my Instagram, I will be posting a document that I found, but I also say it is basically the truth because it is the truth of people, of both documents and the similarities. So let's go ahead and get on with this. So detransition versus the transition.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Gender-related treatment should be banned for minors.
Now, before, and I'm gonna do this like before and stuff like that. Put my answer out there. Gender-related treatment should not be banned for minors, and the reason why I'm saying is because not every treatment is medical or surgical. I do believe, and so does both sides, that all surgical related treatments should be 18 or older. Okay? But medically transitioning, as a hard case, yes, go if you're having strict thoughts about different areas, then yes, by all means, go and have medical treatment done, especially with gender dysphoria and stuff like that. Have that done. Now, like I said, there's 3 types of treatments out there. There's non-medical. It could be just like putting on different clothes. That's non-medical treatment. As long as it gets to where you are good, it's okay. But as in, like the medical treatment, I think it needs to be on a hard case. Several years of being in therapy. I did 2 years of therapy before I was actually got my first HRT appointment and stuff like that. So yes, definitely. But I mean, there's horror stories and everything. So let's go ahead and see what they got.
I repeat, gender-related treatment should be banned for minors.
Medical transition is no place for a child. I transition as an adult, and I have medical complications. I have mental health issues. Child cannot consent to a medical transition because kids want to eat ice cream every day. It doesn't mean that they should.
I kind of agree with you on that as well, because we have so many rules and regulations when it comes to tobacco or alcohol or any type of drugs. Driving a car, you can't even, rent a motel until you're like 25. There's some specific things that we need to.
You can rent a motel at younger ages. In fact, you could rent a motel at the age of 18. I don't know where this person's getting their knowledge from, but I mean, you can.
Put into place that I think would help protect our children, because the minors themselves really don't know who they are until they become 25, 26 years old. Their minds aren't fully developed, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
So I did transition as a minor. I was a teenager who had a lot of mental health issues and had been sexually exploited and hated my body. And it ended with me kind of finding spaces where that was twisted into, no, you're just a boy in the wrong body. And it ended with me having my first ever medical intervention being a double mastectomy at 16 before any hormones, before anything else. And because of transitioning at such a young age, in the past 6 months, I have watched my body fall apart and waste away in front of me. You know, I have constant joint pain. I've watched my muscle mass waste away. I've watched my vocal cords hurt. I don't know if I'll ever be able to carry a child. The evidence we have suggests that the best way to figure out if gender dysphoria persists into adulthood is to let them grow up. Because a lot of these kids will grow out of it, and many of them will just grow up and end up being gay or gender nonconforming.
Yep.
See, that is more of a Republican point of view. You see that with our conservative point of view. You see that a lot with the other one that I will be covering this month with Blair White. Basically, it seemed like, oh yeah, you'll detransition, you'll have this part, you'll have this, you'll have that. It's not all true. It's really not, because I mean, for me, whenever I came out and whenever I started doing HRT and stuff like that, it was like a million-pound weight just lifted off of me. And I mean, it was one of those things where not to say and not to disagree or not to push, anybody away, because I'm not that type of person. But I'm just telling you what's going on in my mind. But in all actuality, is this brought in by politics, or what should we be doing? What should we be doing?
Can the disagreeer step forward?
I mean, if we're going to be honest, every major medical organization supports gender.
There goes Samantha Lux. One of my favorite YouTubers over here. So let's go ahead and see what they're going to be saying.
Gender-affirming care for trans youth. They say it's
absolutely do.
safe and it's life-saving. And there are numerous studies that back that up.
The study that backs it up for puberty blockers is the Dutch protocol, and the same
I have
scientists.
10 studies that I can bring to you
The
right
same
now.
scientists that brought that up have since rolled it back and said it was never supposed to be applied the way it has. The American medical industry, we all know, is money hungry and has gone off the rails.
There's been several studies, several documentations about puberty blockers, and also about HRT and whether it should be started before puberty or whether it should be started after. You can see a big difference in between who started it before and who started it after, but the way that I agree is that, okay, if you have one of those, you have to be on it, then by all means, and it's going to cause more harm than being good. If you're not on it, then yes, go ahead and get it prescribed.
I do agree that there are definitely some doctors out there that may be taking advantage of trans people, and I'm sorry that you went through this. Truly, I really am sorry. But trans kids are valid, and it's not a decision that they're making.
Right.
It's healthcare.
I want to speak to that real quick. Like, I came out 13 years ago when I was 14, and I knew not that I was trans, but that I was a boy. I had to go through a lengthy process of therapy and seeing an endocrinologist and go through different tests and exams to make sure that this was real to everyone else involved. Transitioning and being trans was just a process I went through to become who I always knew I was. It wasn't a decision that I made. It was a life or death thing for me. And if I hadn't gotten on hormones and gotten surgery at 16, I don't know if I would be here.
As a father,
I agree with that, because it's not on it's where you are in life. But you know, it's one of those things where it's a lengthy process. And also with, trans people um, being booted out of sports, stuff like that. There's like a slim number. I think it's like 1% of the actual trans community play sports. There's only so many trans people in a school district. Okay? It's not like a school district that's 100% trans people. No. It just doesn't work out that way. So I'll get into this more at possibly at the end of this video, or I think a thing's gonna like one of the cues are gonna be based off of transitioning in school. But I mean, there's so much that they could do as being in a school district that, I mean, would help out a lot of these trans kids. So let's go ahead and go.
I have 4 kids, and also as a trans person, I think that knowing what it looked like for me as a child, and that experience of going through all of the turmoil and all of the trepidation around my gender identity, I would not put my children in that situation. And also, I don't think that surgeries should be allowed for minors. Like, when we look at the data and we look at the statistics and we look at the research, the vast majority of these surgeries are happening to adults. They're not minors.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. The vast majority of the surgeries are happening to adults. Where the right or the conservatives are getting that they're happening to minors, it may be 1 in 1,000 or 1 in a million. But it's not like it was, okay, we're just going to willy-nilly just go in there. No, it's like it was a have to. I'd rather, and this is just me, I'd rather see somebody, and I found this as a quote. There was a Republican, I don't like my child looking at a rainbow flag, but then the Democrat comes right back behind him. I'd rather have them look at a rainbow flag than have them in a body bag. That's true in so many things, because that's what conservatives are pushing for, is a complete genocide for the trans community. And I think that we need somebody in there that's going to help protect not only us, but all the LGBT and all the other minorities in America.
So let's start there, right? And then further than that, if we look at puberty blockers are reversible. So when it comes to children, when we talk about puberty blockers, that gives them a shot.
Yeah.
And it gives them autonomy over their bodies. It gives them a space that they can explore their expression. They can explore who they are without surgeries, without all of these other things that could have permanent.
Testosterone blocker, from it's just like uh, what they said. Um, Testosterone blocker, just like an estrogen blocker, it's totally reversible, and that's a lot of what people don't understand. They think it's a chemical castration. It's not. It's one of those that is like, okay, well, I'm suppressing the hormone that I don't want. And that's what is literally going on. But you can't tell nothing to anybody that's willing to understand. It's like saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's the same concept. But we're not the horses.
Effects. My kids were maybe 8 and 10 when I started my transition. And so I talked to them in kid terms. I told my son, I said, look, your mom, dad wants to be a dad because that's how I feel. And my kids being so young, they understood it. They were like, okay, we're with it, and so as they got older, I would bring them into my world and get them to understand the things that maybe I was going through. But now that they're adults, they understand differences in people, not just trans people, but people in general.
So there is such thing as gender fluid. How
Yes.
do you know that this kid is not going to change their gender expression later on? We really actually don't have studies on children that are taken over long term, like over 10 years, 20 years. You've only been on testosterone 14 years. One of the oldest trans men, Buck Angel, he almost died from testosterone. You're saying right now it saved your life. You may still die from it. You don't know. You're
die
still
happy.
Exactly.
You'll
an
die for
adult, you can make
ideology, and
that
a lot of
decision.
people have died for an ideology.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's one of those that, yeah, you don't know when you're going to die. You absolutely don't. But I mean, would you rather live a happier life, or would you want to be like, okay, well, here, let's do this and just get it over with? It it doesn't make sense on that behalf. You want to live that long and prosperous life, or longer than what you was already given. For the most, for most of us, it's not about it's not about, okay, well, we're transitioning to be that porn star, or we're transitioning to be that, you know only what star. uh but it's more of, this is a way our mind sees us, and you're never through transitioning. You keep on transitioning until the day that you die. There's not a, well, I'm done here, let's go. No.
It's not an
But
ideology.
we have
It
more
is.
people that are
Who I am.
dying because
It's an
they're not
idea that should
allowed.
And it's definitely not an ideology. I mean, an ideology is saying that it's an ideal, that you have some type of relevancy to keep that ideal running. It's like a hypothesis. Some hypotheses are wrong. No, it's what your body wants. It's what your body needs. and you can't really go without doing it because it's going to keep on messing with your mind.
Allowed
born
to
in the wrong
express
body.
themselves. Look at the suicide rate of transmasculine folks. It is at 55%. And one of the factors that could save their lives is support, right? And so if we have folks that are committing suicide because they're not allowed to transition, how do we fix that? If you're
I
telling
think
me the transition
the
for
first thing-
children or minors is something that shouldn't be done.
The first here, I am very sensitive to this subject, as I've been the person who has had to talk people off the ledge when it comes to suicidality. The discussion around how we talk about suicide is a very dangerous one in this community. You know, my parents were told, do you want a dead daughter or a living son? That's not an appropriate way to talk about that.
And I understand that, but
And
it is our transmasculine youth
I understand
that
that.
are at the highest risk
I
of
understand that, and
suicide.
they deserve.
I think it's more on both. It's not necessarily just on the trans masculine side, but also on the trans feminine side. That I think all around there's problems. And for someone, yes, I've talked people off the ledge too. It's one of those things where, yes, it's a very sensitive, and I mean, it's not just sensitive to the subject. It's more sensitive per basis. You'll understand whenever you go through something like that. Because what's sensitive for one, it's not sensitive for all. You can see within these two people, Luca and Lucky, that they're, I mean, Luca probably would be a little bit more harder to deal with. And I mean, it's one of those that, I mean, it's not good. It's not good for any. But I mean, some people are going to be hard, some people are going to be super easy. But all of them are going to be sensitive to some subject.
Help, but we also need to have a responsible conversation that is not using suicide as a means to push them down a pipeline before they have that comprehensive care.
So I have a question.
Sorry, Aris, I know you've been wanting to say something.
Yeah, no, because I have a big problem. Oh, yeah, no, so I'm not an interrupter. What I'm going to say is we insult children, our youth, so much by taking away their autonomy and their own agency over their own decisions and insulting that they know who they are. Like an adult knows who they are more than they do. No one knows who I am more than I do.
Right.
And it's always been that way. I've always known who I was. I've never felt like I was in the wrong body. I just had to adjust my body. And so I think taking away kids' agency and the right to their own body is, it's anti-human.
I have a question. Do you believe minors should be able to get tattoos or plastic surgery or consent to the list of other?
Minors do get tattoos. That's a shocking statement that I've had to deal with for a while now. There was a school that I used to be a aide at that would have minors going right out of the classrooms to go get tattoos. And they would come back and tell whoever about them, even teachers and stuff like that. So.
Wait,
understand,
no, hold on.
I
let me
understand they
answer
are
this
different
question for
things,
you.
but to what
No, you
level
can't
do
even
we,
make that
no, to what level do we give children bodily autonomy over everything they do? Because here's the thing, children need barriers in childhood development. You need barriers, and they need a safe way to push against those barriers. And I worry with the current medical system that instead of giving them a safe way to express themselves and push against barriers, we have taken some of those barriers away. And that is why you see more detransitioners, because those barriers have been lifted.
Yeah, they're not just doling out surgeries for children. That's not happening
I had a
anywhere.
letter from a therapist in a single visit at the gender clinic office
And
before
that
I
was
had
abuse
the first.
from that therapist who did
Yeah,
not
that-
psychoanalyze.
Exactly. I had to go 2 years to, like I said in the beginning, I had to go 2 years before I could even get on HRT. Not only to therapists, but to regular doctors, to, I mean, just every doctor that's imaginable, to get on to HRT. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, there is some people that could go in there right away and boom, have that letter. That's abuse of the system. That's abuse of the system. Here we go.
As the rest of
Should
your
not
issues.
happen.
Right, and that shouldn't have happened.
Your
not
issues
happen
weren't
to you.
being trans. There were a lot of other issues that you're
I have a
addressing right
diagnosis
now.
of gender dysphoria as
And
well.
you shouldn't. You were misdiagnosed.
No, I have one.
Right.
Yeah, you had to get a second opinion, honey.
Right.
And how was
Can
I, how was I supposed to do that when my parents were told
That's
that I
not
would
your
kill
fault.
myself?
But your
Yeah, that's not your
parents,
fault.
your parents,
Their biggest crime in all this was trusting a medical system that they thought would help me, and the professionals apparently not doing the right thing
I
here.
understand, but your
Yeah,
parents were
absolutely
responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
I think that what this really highlights is the importance of you sharing your story, because what it shows is that you can't jump into these transitions, and you
Yeah.
shouldn't listen to these doctors that push you to transition
And
just
nobody
because you're feeling a
should.
certain way.
Exactly. You shouldn't be pushed into your transition. It should be all on your time. And for people that are transitioning like right away and uh, within 4 months looking like a Barbie doll, I mean, it kind of puts into questioning, okay, was this person already transitioning by themselves before they actually got a note or a letter from the doctor or whatever? I mean,
Social media brainwashes teens to believe that they're trans.
I would say absolutely not. Uh, there's a, there's a lot of stuff that's on social media that's talking about being trans and stuff like that, but in the back of your mind, just like I was, um, I knew I was somebody else, something else. I just couldn't put a finger on what that was, and I literally, it's not because of social media, it's because of me already feeling that I wasn't that way. And it really, it wasn't brainwashing whatsoever. So let's go and see what they say.
I have to agree on that one. Like, there's this thing about it.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's this play that they have.
I don't think that it necessarily brainwashes children, but I think there are a lot of people who get into being queer or trans because it's trendy, and I know that's a really controversial.
Now, I agree with that statement. It's become trendy. It's not become like social media brainwashing, it's become trendy with everything else. It's like being bi. Bi was trendy. Let's keep on.
Statement to make as a trans person, but I have seen it, I have experienced it, and I also find that social media, especially apps like TikTok, give a lot of these kids so much misinformation and lead to people thinking they're trans when there are much deeper issues, and everyone just wants to belong and find an identity, especially when they're young. You know?
I think brainwash is such a strong
that's
word
a very
to use
aggressive
there
word. I
when
would
it's
not. That's why I hesitated to step forward.
And that's why I
yeah.
would step in and actually say it's more so of like a social contagion.
It's just, yeah.
Now, see, this is my thing. I grew up whenever, yes, there was cell phones. There was a lot of other ways to get social media on the phone. You know, MySpace. You know, you still had Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that. But today's kids, they pay attention more to the phone than they do adults. Whenever I was a kid, the adults made you go out there and touch ground, roll around in the mud and play outside. And I mean, there would be days I would come in and I mean, literally look, I stayed out in the sun all day long. And yeah, it was good. And I still believe, you know, at least once a day, go out there and touch grass. Be outside for 30 minutes. And you know, have that fresh air, have that, you know, just away from the monitors and stuff like that, instead of being on it for hours and hours and hours. And I know that I make content, and I also make I also do streaming as well. But I mean, at least once a day I go out there and I go and touch ground. Stay out there for 30 minutes. It gives a break not only to the body, but also the mind itself. And in schools, these kids don't need a cell phone. These kids don't need, and I'm talking about anywhere from elementary to high school. These kids don't need a cell phone. These kids don't need a social media app on their cell phone. The only reason why they have it and stuff like that is because of the parents. I mean, let a kid be a kid, but also let a kid be a kid playing outside, not being stuck on a game or stuck on in. I say this, but I'm saying this as a 39-year-old person. Get them off the YouTube. Get them off of TikTok. Get them off of Instagram. Get them off of all Meta and stuff like that, and tell them go play. They're gonna buck you at first, but then at the end of the day, or whenever they grow up and they finally find out that that was a good thing that they did, or that you did, they'll come thanking you later. Let's go ahead and see what David has to say.
What got me to transition in the first place was social media. It had a grasp on me that there could be something else out in the world for me during that discovery, and I played it to the fullest 100%. I even passed as a female for a good, what was it, 6 years out of the 7 that I was a transition. And later down the road, I went and paid out of pocket and talked to just a regular therapist, and she made me start questioning my own existence in a way, what I can do as a human being, not just as a male or a female, but what can I contribute to the society. And it made me open up to maybe I was born as a male, and it feels empowering to me.
So when you are living in this area, you have to live it like you cannot take yourself to higher.
Yeah, I mean, I was heavy on social.
David said some interesting things, and one of the things that they said that they paid out of pocket to go to a regular therapist, and the regular therapist was talking them out of being trans. I mean, yes. There's always going to be a part of you that says, oh no, you're not trans. But then the majority of you is like, hey, look, this wasn't the body I was supposed to have. This wasn't it. And believe me, I would have came out a whole lot sooner if I was living in any other state. But with living in Texas, and I don't speak about this very much, living in Texas and coming out, like if I would have came out in the 90s, there was a place like maybe 40 minutes away that really my parents, all they had to do is just drop me off there. It was the Mahia State Supported Living Center, and it's because we don't have mental wards here in Texas. We have state schools or state supported living centers nowadays. So yeah, it was really hard to try to come out at that point in time. So I put sports in front of me. I put playing pool, trying to make sure my life was as full as possible from the time I got up to the time I went back to bed, to where I didn't have time to think about it, especially through college. And finally, one too many times of trying to take my own life, I finally gave in. And that's what was going on with this whole ordeal. All right, let's keep on going.
Social media. Like in my transition, Tumblr, that was the place to be for sure. And everyone was talking about their transition from my experience, and everyone was talking about a lot of mental health issues, depression, and all of that. And it was kind of being trendy in that sense. Like when TikTok came out, like that was like a whole nother world. And the biggest thing that I found with that is like they weren't saying a lot of the negative things that were happening in their transition. There was always like a positive outlook on it, like I'm being who I need to be, like this is great.
This is the ticket to your happiness.
Yeah. And
how it's sold.
Like so much on social media. Like I made a documentary on my transition, and I really went into depth of like a lot of my depression that I dealt with on that, and I didn't find anyone talking about that.
And I personally didn't think I was trans till I saw earlier trans YouTubers. Before I was just gender bending man. And for sure, I also feel like comparing yourself on social media to other people that are more beautiful and successful will create dysphoria of some kind. And some people,
it will affect your self-image for sure.
Because we see all those beautiful trans women that are all dolled up or had every possible plastic surgery they could ever get. You're gonna feel dysphoria. You're gonna be like, I don't look like that.
I mean, that's
so I
in
have to go
general,
through
though.
steps.
You know what I mean? Whether you're
Right.
cis or trans, everyone
So social media has
dealing
such
with
a-
that
I've fallen
for
into
sure.
that.
It has
looking
such
at,
a bad impact on
actors and
mental
stuff.
health.
I wanted to be that muscular dude, and I wanted to do
100%.
that. So
No,
yeah,
it is.
To me, on like social media and going to like other trans YouTubers and stuff like that, I don't really see, okay, myself looking at other trans people being like, oh, I wish I had her hair, or I wish that I would have the body that she has. No. I try to see what they've done in their life and see if I didn't have that same done in my life, see how would that affect me. Like I look at a lot of Samantha Lux videos. I've said this all the way through this video. I've looked at a lot of Samantha's videos and never wished I was her. But some of the stuff that she's went through, I would be like, okay, did I do that? Am I doing this right? I never said, I wish I had the body of her, or wish I had her hair. I wish I looked like her. No, because everybody's different. Because if we had 100 million Samantha Luxes rolling around, world would be, well, with her probably kind of great, but the saying goes, if you have 100 me's floating around, it would be kind of boring. So yeah, I mean, it's, with me, it's not about looking at the person, wanting them or wanting different parts. It's all about how they transition and to be successful. What do I have to do in my life to get to where I need to be? So, yeah.
It has such a bad, like well-documented bad impact on people's like sense of self and mental health, and so.
But I also really quickly just want to say, like, I don't want people to think that, like, social media is turning people trans.
Yeah, we agree with that.
All right, can the disagreeer step forward?
Yeah, okay, so my thoughts on social media and everyone suddenly looking or being trans. I think whoever is leaning towards that or looking towards being trans for answers was always someone that felt that way or felt some type of way about their gender or their identity or the way they present themselves. They're just gonna go that way. I know plenty of femme twinks who went the muscle queen pipeline. It's not a rare occurrence. And so just experience your life, have fun. Try not to take social media seriously because no one is advertising their failures. It's all fake.
Yeah, but I think it is also important to say that like social media is very, very effective. I mean, I personally scroll on TikTok and I'm like, do I have OCD? Do I have autism? Like all these different things. And like it can suck you in. So it's important to be aware of those things.
I have a question for Samantha, since you have the largest platform here. Do you believe over the years you've inspired people to transition?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that I've inspired people to believe that it's okay to be transgender, it's okay to express themselves, and that it's possible to live a happy and successful life.
How do you feel about the fact that some of them are going to regret the body modifications they got and going to have
I think that they should go to a doctor that is well-versed in gender care and have the appropriate psychoanalytic analysis done beforehand.
Here's what I'm saying. I 100% agree with Samantha's what she said. It's more of before you spend, because let's say it like this: the surgeries are not cheap. Especially the bottom surgery. The bottom surgery is right around anywhere from 15 to, I've seen some doctors do $30,000 for the bottom surgery. For FFS, it's around 5 to 10 grand. I mean, before you start doing all of these, as the lady in yellow, or the DeTrans, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to call anybody out of their gender or whatever. The person that's in yellow that has the freaking awesome hair, I will say it like that. I would never color my hair that bright, just saying. But before you have something like that, and before you start putting thousands of dollars down on surgeries, and it takes up, I know, bottom surgery, I know I'm going to be pretty much bed rest for 6 months, but then after that, you still got to dilate 3 and 4 times a day. So it would be, it's super difficult to, even do something like that. And you're over here, well, what about the regret? Okay, you got to look at the money situation. Or do you have just like, 100K just floating up in the air that you can just go drop on plastic surgeries, like, a candy store, taking a child to a candy store and letting the child go hog wild? No, that's not how it works. And you do need to, do your research. That's like what I tell people in the political areas. Do your research. If it's something that you wholeheartedly believe in, and not just because it's a fad, or it's a cult following, or it's this, or it's that, research. Research. If you got that amount of money and you just want to drop it to make you look good, then by all means, go do it. But whenever you start having those second thoughts, and you didn't do your research, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you can't blame nobody. You blame in yourself.
That's not my
And
problem.
I feel like a lot of folks are going to social media looking for possibility models. They're looking to see if they're okay. I know for me, when I was very young, looking to see if there were other people like me, because for a long time I thought that I was
The only one.
exactly.
I thought I was the
right.
only one.
And so feeling like that, like suicide was a thing for me,
Me too.
right? And so when I did see a possibility, Marty, when I did see somebody that looked like me, that put me in a space where I was like, I'm okay.
Sigh of relief.
Right.
I will say there's also a difference from like showing people that you can have a positive life and then telling them what to do. So I think you on your channel are kind of like, hey, look what I was able to do and how this made me feel, versus like, you should do this because I did this.
Right.
So I
And I'm
think,
also, I try my best to be very upfront
right,
about, you know, the
because
issues
we
of
can't help if
transitioning.
someone's
Exactly.
going to change their mind on something. Like that's inevitable.
Yeah.
We're human.
And that's one of the things that I like about Samantha's channel. Samantha is like super upfront about everything, pain levels, this, that, just about everything that you could think of. She has said something about it. So, yeah, it's one of those channels that if you want to really um, get some good content, get some like um, whether you're thinking about uh, becoming trans or anything like that, go watch Samantha Lux. I do all the time, and I am also trans. I I don't look as good, but I'm still trans.
And I have to jump on one more thing with that. Like, if I'm watching her channel and it inspires me to transition, I have been watching white straight men be president for years, and I've not wanted to be president once, so I don't identify with that. If we're going to talk about brainwashing, let's talk about where we see things every single day happening a certain way versus someone just living their life authentically.
I completely agree with her on that one statement. Yes.
People with gender dysphoria need therapy, not surgery.
Okay. So people with gender dysphoria need therapy, not surgery. Okay, there's like I told you in the beginning, there's three types of um of transitioning. One of them is non-medical, changing your whole wardrobe, start wearing makeup, stuff like that to conform to the way that you look. That could be all you need at that point in time in your life. Then you go to blockers. That would be a part of medical transitioning. So, medical transitioning, you could go to blockers and also start HRT at that point in time. That's some ways that it would be great for you if you are having that external crisis to start transitioning earlier. We've seen a lot of that with I Am Jazz from the Learning Channel. Love that show all the way through. Um, I'm a big friend of her brother, and definitely, would love to sit and chat with Jazz and, Sander and basically all of them. I would love to just sit down and just uh, do a full scale podcast around them. And then your last part of transitioning is your surgical part. But you're still going to have to do the medical transitioning the rest of your life. Because if you don't, the way I was told and the way that I looked at the research and stuff like that is that if you did the medical transitioning and you're like past year 2 with doing medical transitioning. Um, for every year that you're not on it, your bones get weaker, the calcium levels drop, and stuff like that. From what I've understood through medical documents, that's also true too. But I mean, some people live like the detransition people here. I think they will live a long and happy life. That if they like who they are, then yes. So let's go into it. For me, I think it should be um I think it should be transition. You're able to start transitioning, but up to a certain extent. And I think that we hit the head of the nail on transitioning, that until you get to 18 or you get your parents' consent or whatever on that, I think that should be the line drawn on surgical consent. But medically consent, you got that's got to be like a resort, a last resort, or something that's going to be okay. Well, yeah, I'm having these thoughts. I don't want to act on these thoughts and stuff like that. The clothing transition, the non-medical, I mean, if you feel like you are trans at that point in time, you should be able to change clothes. You should be able to wear who you think you are. That's what makes America America.
I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that one.
I don't.
I've been convinced.
We all agree.
I think
It's potentially both, though.
Yeah.
I think everyone with gender dysphoria needs to go through a therapeutic process and mental health care before they make that choice for themselves.
Exactly.
I personally confused a lot of my gender dysphoria for body dysmorphia, because no matter how much I feminize my body, till today I still don't feel comfortable in my own body. And now, like, looking among like members of trans community, I see that people keep on getting more and more surgeries. The surgeries are no longer affirming. You can just tell that this person is like struggling with body images. I was able to get on estrogen.
The difference in between regular surgeries and gender conforming surgeries or gender affirming surgeries, basically, whenever you think of gender affirming surgeries, you're talking about bottom surgery. You're talking about taking a part off or flipping it or doing something to that effect. It's not like, okay, yeah, I want to go get top surgery. That's gender affirming. No. Whenever you're talking about gender affirming surgery, you're talking about bottom surgery, in which that would, I mean, that's a very powerful thing. It's something that you just can't walk away from and be like, okay, and that's the reason why it's charged anywhere from 15 to 30,000 is because of that. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, it makes you think.
Pretty quickly when I was 22, and my mental health declined afterwards, and I attributed it to being still in the wrong body, needing more body modification, end up getting sex reassignment surgery. I do believe that transition was sold to me as a hardware fix.
Gender affirming surgery is SRS. What I grew up calling it, it's sexual reassignment surgery. It's the bottom surgery.
For my mental issues that were not addressed. I still struggle with internalized homophobia that pushed me into transition in the first place. I struggle with borderline personality disorder, body dysmorphia. I'm on a spectrum, and I'm ADHD, and I have all those issues that were not helped, and I was still struggling with them after transition, and I still do. Overall, after a few years, I came to a conclusion that I was not in the wrong body, that I'm a gender non-conforming man, and I am a feminine man. That's what I am.
This game, you're not ready for.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but I've had a lot of binary trans people say that it's not a mental health issue. Like, if you're trans, and I know I don't agree with that. Like, I think there's a disconnect between the mind and the body. I guess I'm asking that. Like, do you think that it's a mental health disorder? And
I don't
needs to
think
have
being
therapy?
transgender is a mental health
disorder.
disorder. I think, gender incongruence is what they're referring to it as now. It's listed as a sexual health concern, but the gender dysphoria, which is the symptom that arises when you are transgender, is a mental health concern.
So maybe I'm thinking.
Exactly. I mean, yes, gender dysphoria is a mental health disorder. And the only way to get away from that is by conforming to what you are supposed to be.
That's what I'm trying to say then in a sense.
And then once you are diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I feel like this is kind of what the prompt is kind of hinting at, if you do have gender dysphoria, the only treatment for that is transition. Whether that be just a social transition, a medical transition, whatever transition fits you, that is the only way to heal your gender dysphoria. When I transitioned, the first thing my mom said to me was, can't you just be gay? It hurt hearing that, but a big reason that
I got told that by my mother too. But my mother is in her 80s and point blank said, why can't you just be gay? We can accept that. Your Uncle Ricky on my side's gay. We accept him.
that she said that was she was afraid of what my dad would think. He's always been very, very conservative, very traditional, you could say. He would make comments about trans people, about gay people growing up, so I always knew that he wasn't necessarily accepting. So when it came down to me transitioning, I said to him, I'm going to do this. Either you're going to be the dad that accepts me and supports me through it, or like, goodbye. And he chose to support me, and we're closer than ever now.
I think if my dad was still alive, my dad died whenever I was 15. But I think if he was still alive, he would have accepted me as being who I am today. Because it's not only made me who I didn't change who I am, but it's given me the confidence and the, willing to move on with my life. And I think he would have accepted that.
And I think a lot of us go through medical transitions to easier go through social transition.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so a lot of our folks that do transition and may detransition, both experiences are valid, but also understanding that we're not mentally ill because we're trans, right? And I think that there should be a psychiatrist or someone within behavioral health to be able to say, okay, you're in the right frame of mind to make this decision. But I want to just make it very clear that trans people are not dealing with mental health because they're trans.
Absolutely.
I disagree. I feel like transgender is definitely, and elderly trans people afford for it to be classified as mental illness, so it's covered by insurance. Otherwise, why are you getting the surgeries to?
Because
if it's not a medical.
The living in a red state, and I will say it like this: living in a red state, the surgeries are not covered. everything has to be paid out of pocket. Uh, I mean, you can't even look at a medical insurance, and I know from being a licensed uh, agent and doing medical insurance, you can't sit there and be like, well, I want one that's covered with that covers transgender care, because there's not one. In fact, there's a paragraph in every I know it's here in Texas, but every uh, one that's here in Texas has a little bit of paragraph that says anything that belongs to being trans or belongs to um, pursuing um, transitioning is not covered by the insurances. There's no type of substitute that you can have here in the state of Texas that will let you go through with the trans, any type of trans healthcare. Thankfully, personally, there is help here in the state of Texas that deals with people being trans, and it's called the Kind Clinic. That's KIND Clinic here in the state of Texas. And they've helped me start my transitioning and been really cool about it. And literally, you're not alone. You're never alone with them. They help you with everything. So if you are here in the state of Texas, there's clinics in Dallas and also in Austin. There's two clinics there in Austin, one clinic in Dallas. Go to them. Spend a little bit of money. Go to them. You will not be disappointed.
Condition.
The dysphoria is a medical condition.
It is, but it's in your head. I would say that you have some kind of mental disorder if you're trying to mimic a stereotype of opposite sex.
Right, but it's not a mimic. It's
the treatment for this
aligning.
mental illness is to transition.
I have a question though, because I have a gender dysphoria diagnosis. I always have. But I'm still where I am today.
Can I give you my honest opinion? I think that you were probably misdiagnosed.
I don't think I was.
So you do
feel
have gender
dysphoria in your body?
I certainly do now.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Because of the
you
changes that you made.
want to talk about now, but at the time,
At the time,
I genuinely believed I did. I thought it would save me. And then looking back, I realized that my dysphoria stemmed from some severe trauma that was not handled.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I think that mental health step is so important.
Yeah,
Because I've heard this from several other, mostly female detransitioners who we had some form of pretty bad trauma that spawned gender dysphoria symptoms.
Yeah.
See, okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Most people, whenever they start or before they start transitioning, they have some sort of gender dysphoria. They have that's the brain telling you, hey, look, I need you to help me out to help you out. And that's that gender dysphoria at that point in time. But then whenever a person that is misdiagnosed and stuff like that will live out the rest of their life, and especially whenever they have been and basically So after all of this, they turn around and basically now have worse gender dysphoria because they've they've changed their body so much. And it's not only gender dysphoria, it's body dysphoria as well, because they've changed their body so much. Their brain's like, okay, hold on, we went a little bit too far here. And see, that's the whole thing of it. So you got to pay attention where in your transition you are and how much you got to really know yourself.
And we can disagree about misdiagnosis or something mid-labor, but it felt real at the time for me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. I didn't mean
And
that in a
no, I know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where that's where the mental health treatment really needs to come in and get to the root of that issue, because oftentimes, specifically with the detransitioners I've talked to, that was ignored. You know, I came out to my parents in a mental health facility after telling the therapist that I thought I was transgender. And she told me we had to tell your parents so that way you can get the help you need. It led to me seeing a gender therapist who, honestly, the issues I was...
In some instances, that helps, telling the parents and stuff like that. But then in some instances, like where I live, and at the point in time, it would have caused a hindrance. It would have caused, like I said, 40 miles away, there was a state institution that they could have just dropped me off at and forgot about me. So I had to keep all of this in, which caused a lot of problems at school. I wasn't doing well in school, wasn't happy. I didn't care. I just, if it wasn't for the, like me telling myself that, hey, look, I am going to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to college. I probably would have dropped out.
facing were never addressed. To this day, no one ever addressed the fact that I had severe, trauma.
And on that note, it wasn't because of me as a person wanting to drop out. It's because I had to prove people wrong. My whole side of my dad's family basically told my mother, told me that I would not graduate from high school and I wouldn't go to college. But I did.
Trauma and exploitation going on as a young teenager. Instead, I was kind of just affirmed in, you believe this, and instead of even just a little pushback, it led me to the point where the very first medical intervention I ever had was a double mastectomy at 16. A few months after that, I started testosterone because it was the next step of what I was supposed to do.
God intended for there to be only two genders.
Now, nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about God intending it to be be only two genders. In all Native American cultures, there's 5 genders, but there's only 2 sexes. Same way with some groups around the world. I wanted, and one of the more famous ones, I want to say was the Egyptians. They believed uh, in, and I'm going to use like um, gaming terminology. They believed in like Khajiit and stuff like that. And yes, it's weird, but they actually believed in that stuff uh, in times before that. Um, Also, I mean, it's not only just the Native American culture, but it's more of culture in general. There's okay, people confuse a lot of um people confuse a lot of being like there's two genders whenever there's two sexes, but like multiple genders. Okay. Hence, like on most of your applications that you fill out now and back in the 70s and 60s, it doesn't ask for gender, it asks for sex. Because those two things, just like everybody else, they know that those two things, gender and sex, are two different things. Whether people want to say it now, but of course, we've got like far right, just like we got the far left. I mean, it is what it is for today.
I'm no author, yet I sell thousands of books every single month. And the crazy thing is, I don't write a word of them myself.
Okay, you go for it.
And it seems like the two, like for the people who come up first on the negative one, it seems like these two are the ones that come up. I'm surprised Luca didn't come up.
Okay, so as a Christian, I truly believe that God created male and female, and He had created that throughout life, throughout the nature, throughout the wildlife, throughout Earth itself. And then the arguments come up into the ocean sides of, well, there's these asexual creatures and stuff like that. Well, they were designed that way for a reason, and we humans were not designed to. We were designed to procreate and be able to bring life back to the earth, because we live and we die, we live and we die. It's a rotation of a process of life in itself, and it's its own journey. So I truly do believe that there is male and there is female, but I can respect people's choices. However, that's where I stand on it.
Well, I'm not Christian, but I do believe there's only two biological sexes, and somehow that's how it's been designed, whether it's by higher power or by evolution. I do believe gender expression has been on a spectrum for centuries. We do have references to people who've been cross-dressing. We have references to eunuchs. And as somebody who went through transition and detransition, when I started taking testosterone, it's almost like reminded me of my original blueprint. And I feel like I went against my original blueprint and I did a lot of damage to it, and I just cannot go back to who I was, because without my testicles, I'm just too far gone in my transition. So that's where I'm at.
This person didn't understand the concept of the question. That's what this person didn't understand. Not trying to make fun of the situation, not trying to make fun of the person, but this person did not understand the context of what is going on. Like I said, there is two biological sexes. Well, there's actually three, but I'll get into that after I make my point here. There is the sex of being a male. There is a sex of being a female. Gender refers to what you are as a person. Doesn't mean that it is what you have. A gender does not personally make what you have in between your legs to be all out and just say that. Gender is how you express yourself to whoever. Okay? That's the reason why there's two different things, like I said before, on the on any type of application, whether it's a medical application, a job application, just any type of application, they ask you for sex. They don't ask you for gender, because gender is an expression to who you are. Okay? Like I said, the Native Americans believe in 5 different genders. One that was closest to God was called Two-Spirit, which also had a male and female spirit together. Okay? Then you had the trans masculine and the trans feminine. Then you had your regular male, cisgendered male, and cisgendered female. So that's how all of that was and still is. Okay? So with her, with them, not I keep on misgendering, and I'm so sorry about that. With them going and being a part of a certain and just saying all of this other stuff, I mean, it is just almost asinine. But I guess we'll move on. Somebody's got to call them out.
Can the disagree step forward?
Yeah, you know, we have historically spent more time focusing on and celebrating several genders. There are several different cultures throughout the world that celebrate the different genders, and to negate the fact that they exist and to negate their validity is just wrong.
There are as many intersex people as there are redheaded people on the planet. I can name 12 people at the top of my head who are born intersex. So to pretend like there's man and woman is just erasing an entire group of people. The God you speak of, the first God that intersex people get to meet is the doctor, because it's up to their discretion of just what you're gonna be when they mutilate their body to be a man or a woman, and that is not fair.
Right.
Right, and I think also gender and male and female is not the same thing.
Biological sex are different things.
Yeah, we're talking about gender, which is like gender identity, the social aspect.
There is what I was talking about. It's more of, just everything else that's, there. Sex is a label. Gender is much more than just a label. It is how you express.
To being a man or a woman, but male and female dictate sex, so like body parts.
I disagree with the having sex and gender being two different things.
Okay,
I
well,
believe
that's a
them to be
fact.
one. So I believe that there is, they're the same, they're one and the same. They're not different, but we have evolutionary problems within the humanity, because I also see that there are intersex animals that do exist, and that's how they're born. But I also do believe that the initial design was for man and woman, and then somewhere along the way, viruses, mutations, diseases, plagues, all that type of stuff that we have in the world does play a part back onto the world itself. But I believe the initial intent was for God to create Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. I'm just going to say it.
Wow. The thing is that even before we've had factories and before we've had all of this other stuff. There was intersex people that was the in the world. Now, intersex person, if you're not not knowing of what that is a person that has both body parts of a male and female. So yeah, there's people out there uh that are like this, and some people get mutilated whenever they was young to uh do all, get to where it's only one sex instead of letting the person decide later on what their sex is actually going to be.
That's homophobic.
I know it sounds homophobic, and I understand
No,
I'm
it
hitting.
is homophobic.
It is homophobic.
That's okay.
Homophobia made me transition, and that's what you're perpetuating right now. I grew up in a very homophobic family, and since I was a kid, I was always brainwashed, said gay is bad. My parents were not happy that I was naturally feminine. They always.
So I didn't really misgender them, I guess, because they go by he, she, they. So there we go. I guess I was correct. I was just trying to be nice.
Try to make me more masculine. They tried to give me to masculine sports. I was mercilessly bullied at school for my femininity, constantly being told that I'm not a real man, that I'm a sissy. And when I came out to my parents as gay, they took me to therapists and tried to do pretty much conversion therapy on me, which failed.
So I don't believe in God. I believe in people that exist right in front of me, and I believe they should have the right to exist. And so
I'm not saying they don't have the right to exist. I'm just saying,
I'm
just saying that
I mean,
was the
they weren't
initial
mistakes
intent.
either. They're just here the way you and I are here right now, and they are who they are, and we have to accept people as they are.
Right, and there are biological differences in trans folks when we look at the brainstem. You know, our brainstems are different. Like that's
Neurologically.
Right, neurologically we're different.
Yeah,
and
male and female are different, exactly.
Trans people are different.
Yes.
They've found a distinct difference in the cortex.
There is no biomarker for trans. Some brain scan of some gay males is identical to female brain, but there is no biomarker for trans. Please don't spread misinformation.
There is science that hints towards it. It's just not confirmed.
No,
there's
research.
So therefore, it falls under the belief that there is, but there is no scientific fact to back that up, which therefore I believe that God's initial intent was to create male and female.
If God
There is actual studies out there that there is a scan of a female brain, there's a scan of a male brain, and in between there's a scan that looks, it's a trans, but it gives off like both of them combined and just twists. That's what that is.
God intended to, if God exists and in the way that you believe and just intended to make male and female, then we wouldn't be sitting here. I believe
intersex people wouldn't exist.
in a higher power, right, of my own. And God is not this thing that creates rules and binary situations and laws that can be broken or really made. We're just all here.
Yeah.
You know, like I was born in a female body, but I was never a girl. Never. Ever. Ever. I can't explain why, but that is my truth. That is the fact. That is who I've always been. And there's no way that I'm going to look up at this guy at some guide and be like, oh yeah, you made me as a mistake.
Right.
Transitioning improved my sex life.
Now, I have no. Well, yeah, I do. I was fixing to say I have no nothing to say on this, but I do, and it does improve. It does improve. But in aspects of, you look at it one way and then you look at it from like what I want is a relationship with a person. But then you look at it from like the um the point of view where it goes to, and it's like you're an object, you're a play object with some people. That's the part that I hate. I can understand being promiscuous and uh, having something there, but then, but the end game for me, just like some people, is being a being in a relationship with a person that loves them just as much as they love themselves. So, yeah, it's kind of hard.
Introducing the Jumpzilla New Generation Super Trampoline. Created for fun, fast, with easy to follow instructions.
Who wants to start?
I could start.
And I'm embarrassed.
Not to say that my sex life was bad before, but I think transitioning and coming into my body and feeling comfortable in my skin allowed me to open up more and allowed me to not only be better in bed, but also explore what my sexuality looks like.
Yeah.
Being trans also like made sex really complicated for me too, because I'm a straight guy and I pass very well, and majority of the women that I've been with, I would have to eventually kind of like break it to them that I was trans and deal with a lot of rejection. And with somebody, I would never let girls touch me or see me without clothes on. Not having a penis made me feel inferior as a man, and that no one would want me, which is why I like rejected that part of myself and never even let it be loved. It took a lot of really accepting that people were going to accept me and be attracted to me and love me and want to give me pleasure regardless of what was in my pants. And that took a long time. It took until I was like, I think I was 21 when my ex-girlfriend and I started dating. From that point on, I realized that just letting someone love me was half the battle. And once I let that piece come into play, I mean, it changed my life.
Do you want to go? You want to go?
Y'all can go. I'll go last.
I mean, so even though I detransitioned, in the beginning, especially when I was on hormones, like it increased my sex drive a lot, and there were a lot of aspects to that that was like enjoyable to explore my fluidity for sure. I was able to date a lot of people, and I think like from detransitioning, it's like the opposite of that. Like my sex drive completely changed in a way that like there's good aspects to not being horny 24/7. It helped me be more comfortable in my body, even with detransitioning, which sounds weird, but like having a trans male body was like so different from the norm. So like I had to accept certain parts of myself. So like even with detransitioning, it helps me accept like certain parts of myself that I don't have still.
Absolutely.
I did identify as a gay man before I transitioned, and like those relationships, I feel like I always kind of had like out of body experiences when we were like intimate. And even after I transitioned, before I had bottom surgery, I like just like the anxiety and the dysphoria that I would feel whenever I was intimate, or like a partner would try to be intimate with me, was just like crippling.
Yeah.
So then when I had surgery and I felt more affirmed in my body, and you know everything it feels right to me now, I'm finally able to have those intimate connections with people, and form those deeper bonds. So it's really
Amazing.
helped me a lot.
I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
When I came out as trans when I was 18, I moved to Miami, and it wasn't until I got my gender-affirming surgeries where I was where I did lose my virginity, because I was just not comfortable doing that. I was like, I'm not presenting in my best light, and I think I could get there.
Yeah, for me it was like I'm not fitting the role that I'm supposed to play in this relationship.
It felt weird, and you also attract a different type of partner. Back in my day, I used to attract what we call a chaser. Versus someone who was genuinely attracted to the female form, which is someone who I wanted to, that's the role I felt. And so that's where I was comfortable. And now I'm comfortable. In Virginia, Virginia, the T word did not exist. That was on Jerry Springer and Maury Povich, and that's where that stayed. No one was trans. And so I transitioned when I was about 18. I moved to Miami, and my joke is that I hit the tarmac and I said, I'm a woman, by the way. I remember I came out to my mom and I was super nervous because I'd come out as gay years and years before, because that was so much easier. But when I came out, I remember my mom just asked if I was happy, if I was healthy, and if I was gonna finish school, because she had already paid for it. And I said yes.
So I kind of had a problem with the mic. I accidentally forgot that I left it on mute. So with all that's been said, I mean, being for the longest amount of time, trans was not a word here in Texas. In fact, if you spoke up that you was gay or lesbian, they would have something about you. So
Can the disagree step forward?
Transition definitely ruined my sex life. I was fine with my penis, but a year after estrogen, I felt like that part didn't belong on me anymore. So I went ahead and had sex reassignment surgery. After that, my sex drive was gone pretty much. I kept on having complications. I wasn't able to keep my neo-vagina open despite rigorous dilation. I had multiple revisions, including colon vaginoplasty. I just got some of my sex drive back last year when I started detransitioning with testosterone, but it's kind of traumatic to have male sex drive back without my penis. Also, I want to say that sexuality is fluid. My sexuality has definitely changed once I lost my testosterone. Before, I was strictly attracted to men. After I lost my testosterone, I was attracted to people in general, because now I didn't have this male sex drive, so I couldn't relate to men as much. They wanted to have sex, but I just wanted to hold hands and cuddle.
Do you like having a P.O. box but are tired of wasting time and money driving to the post office? And I post.
And now my body dysmorphia / actual gender dysphoria as well is worse than ever before. I do feel like I'm stuck in a surgically created body. I just don't think I've been really myself by trying to become a woman. Yeah, so transition did take a lot from me.
Must be really, really hard. Yeah.
it is super hard, especially whenever, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Luca and people like that transitioning and then find out that, hey, look, you spent all of this money. Now you got gender dysphoria. Now you got body dysphoria, and you feel like you're in a bad place. I feel sorry for them, but then or for them, I say. But in all actuality, it's all about doing your research and stuff like that. I mean, how are you gonna know that you like to wear certain clothes without putting them on? no matter what. So, and there's also ways around some of the ideals that's there. Let's go.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
If you had like found the results that you desired in the beginning, would you feel differently than you do now?
No, because I realized I just miss being a man, you know, I just miss being obsessed about sex and money. I don't want to do the whole emotional thing. And I'm talking about stereotypes, okay? So I regret, it's just like now I'm a medical patient for life. Also having sex drive back, it just reminds me that I lost all these years. I could have been having fun, whether it's chasers or, I definitely have internalized homophobia. So internalized homophobia also pushed me into transition because I felt like chasers weren't good enough because I wanted to be a woman. I wanted to escape my homosexuality. But now I realize at the end of the day, I'm a gay man and I'm still living with internalized homophobia because therapists actually never helped me with that.
It's fascinating that you say that because I dated men and women, and in my transition, I felt like I had an internalized homophobia when I was with men because I didn't feel like a gay man. And that was really hard for me to like figure out because I had this journey for so long, and a lot of sexual experiences were good, but I was on Grindr and I'm sleeping with these men and they're treating me how I would want to be treated in a social setting, but I'm like, I was really, really masculine in my presentation, but I tended to be kind of feminine in my roles within sex. And so I think that also got me to realize that I wanted to detransition because it was a reflection of the relationships that I had. Like, to follow kind of some stereotypes, like I did miss being a woman in some of those like social settings, like with how women interacted with me, with how men interacted with me. Like, so yeah, that's heavily relatable to that for sure. So I do not regret my transition. Shocking, I know. That was like a really great time for me in the beginning. I really was able to explore and express myself in ways that I could not have done without hormones and surgery. I learned so much about how people treat people based on gender and looks in general. I feel like I would not be the person, especially the confidence and security that I have within myself if I didn't transition as presenting as a woman in this world. My dynamic with men in general is so much different. I mean, I was very insecure, very submissive, very quiet, and now I'm able to speak up for myself because of that.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, during my transition, I didn't actually have a high sex drive from the hormones, and ever since I came back, my sex drive has been higher ever since, and I think it's because I'm no longer on the estrogen. My testosterone levels are increased after I changed back to being who I was originally born as, and it also kind of opened up my eyes to say, maybe I wasn't really a female. This is probably what I would like my future spouse to have, to look upon it. And I'm proud that I actually have that sex drive back again because I felt like I lost it for a long time.
The LGBTQ plus community is not as accepting as they claim.
Okay. Yes, they're not accepting. And they don't claim to be accepting. It's one of those things where, and I'm being truthful. Being a trans person, I get hate on all the time by YouTube. If I was to go in my YouTube comments, bro thinks he's trans, and this is not the bro thinks he's a woman, trans, why don't you just kill yourself, and so on and so forth. That's the type of comments that I get on a daily basis. So yeah, whenever it comes down to like acceptance and stuff like that, it's not a really good we don't really have a really good safe space for that on here, because people just like and I'll call out a person right now, Blair White. And there's some people that's on X that are just the same, that if you are not passable, they don't want you in their group. They don't want you. And that's the part that we need to get rid of is, okay, because everybody's not going to have the genetics to take 4 months and then be passing, or 8 months and be passing, or a year to be passing and stuff like that. So I mean, the LGBT community, for the most part, yes, accepting, but then also on the other end, you have people that have higher expectations and don't understand quite the significance that they place on those higher expectations, that can turn people into uh, basically, they can turn people away and cause problems.
Sorry, musical chairs.
Musical chairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to agree. That is true information.
There's still so much transphobia within the LGBT people in the LGBT community that hasn't been addressed yet.
Shoot, there's transphobia within trans people.
Absolutely. When I was transitioning in high school, I searched for acceptance from the cis hetero world. And now I feel like I'm doing the opposite and searching for acceptance from my own community half the time. Like when I was in college, the queer community on my campus hated me because I did like heteronormative like guy stuff. I played lacrosse, I was in a frat, but like I wasn't that guy, I guess, that they had in their head. And every time I would go to the LGBT club meetings, I would get like they would stare into my soul like I was just this awful thing. And it's always just made me feel invisible and small in whatever space I'm in. And I find that just really disheartening.
And it happens in a lot of other cultures and communities as well too. So
It's funny that
it just happens.
You mentioned like the transitioning in high school part and like that shift from, you know, searching for acceptance outside and then turning around and then having to search for acceptance within the community.
Yeah.
Because I did notice that when I was still living as a trans man, when, you know, when I passed really well, all of a sudden it was like I wasn't welcome in these spaces anymore until they knew, and then you get that icky feeling of like you only want me here because of that. And you know, now I have the DeTrans aspect where no community wants me. No one. Like I'm still part of the I'm part of the LGB part, but I've lost people that I thought they liked me for me, and it didn't matter what I was.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, detransitioning was the thing that I've been called a traitor.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's me too. They don't want me. The rest of the world doesn't want me.
That's not true.
It's all in who you know, put yourself around. It's not necessarily the people who are always there. It's the people who you put yourself around to where they want you for you. They don't want you for anything else. It's the whole idea of be a trunk for a person, you know, be a part of a tree, be the trunk, not the branch. A branch is going to break, fall off, and die. That's your fake friends. That's the fake people that's going to be out there. That trunk is what's going to keep you from being the worst you possible. That's the person that's going to be there for the thick and the thin and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's one of those things where you have to look at it to to align yourself.
It's not true.
It can
We
often
want you.
feel that way. It can feel isolating.
But it feels
that
really
way.
isolating. Like this is not a club.
It's not a
you
club.
know, and it's not like a personality trait that I'm just taking up. And God forbid one day I change my mind. I won't, but like, or something happens where I have to detransition. I would hope that the people who stood by my side through everything else would still be there for me because of who I am. Period. And not because of an effing label over my head.
And even when I transitioned, I dealt with the traitor to everyone. It was, you know, oh, you want to be a man and the patriarchy. And I was like, I get it, but also... yeah. But what I found very interesting was like this divide between trans men and trans women. When I first started doing a lot of advocacy, I was told that just being in the space, that I was taking up too much room, that I was taking up too much space and don't speak and all of these things. And I was like, wait a minute, but I'm trans too, right?
Yeah.
This community also belongs to us too. Right. So that was something that I grappled with for a while.
I hung out with a lot of gay women, and then when I transitioned, I definitely lost my space there, and that was like really hard for me to navigate because being shunned out of these female spaces for me was really hard and difficult. And then when I got to the trans male community, there was a lot of competition. Who looked the best, who passed the best, like that was very difficult.
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
As a community, we want to, and I had to check and see if my mic was on. As a community, we want to make sure that we align ourselves with people who support us. It shouldn't be on who passes, who doesn't. It should be we as a community be a community for each other. I've had this happen several times that, oh, you're not trans, you're just this. No, I am trans, believe me. I don't make it my whole personality. I make it to where I am confident in who I am. And see, that's what having that support is where you can make yourself confident on the way you do things, around you. It's like what I said at the beginning of this, it's be that trunk or have somebody that's going to be that trunk, not a branch.
Fortunately, I had a full beard, so it was like an easy, like, you know what I mean? Like, but still, like, I heavily resonate with trans men still, and I definitely resonate with trans women from detransitioning and gender nonconforming people. So it's like, where do I belong?
Weird position to be in because it's like one community, like I said, doesn't really want you, but you don't fit in. You can't really go all the way back, so you don't fit in with the rest of them.
We just shouldn't have to categorize. Like we shouldn't have to float around, wonder where we belong. Like
we have the other detransitioners, but even then, we're all still vastly different individuals who have vastly different life experience, political views, religious beliefs.
Right.
You know,
you're not just
experience
a detransition.
Yeah, exactly.
That's no
Experience how
with
we
the
talk
trans
about
community, right?
In some ways, it's empowering because it feels like you're, even though all this happened, you're being seen as an individual for almost the first time after, you know, spending my high school years being lumped in by both the LGBT community and the rest of the people in a category. But it's also very isolating because you don't have really that community support that other places get.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing, and I absolutely love I love watching Jubilee videos by Jubilee Media, and I would love to be on one of their middle roads or middle grounds. I would love that. But here's the thing. I mean, as a community, we're supposed to be there for each other. We're not supposed to be there to, oh, you pass more, so you get these benefits and so on and so forth. It's not like that. It's not supposed to be like that. We're all here for a little bit of time on this great green and blue ball. Whatever you believe in is whatever you believe in. It's called, you get out there, you do your thing, you go home. But, I was talking about the school stuff, and I remember I was talking to a preacher. Uh, I'm still ordained, but I was talking to a preacher, and the preacher was spewing rhetoric during a sermon about having trans kids play sports. And I'm like, okay, hey, how do you know what they've been through? Well, I just know. I was like, okay, let me hear what you think that they go through just to play sports. Well, they just sign up. I was like, no, you have no idea. Starting out young, you have to go through therapy sessions. And some of those therapists are going to psychoanalyze everything that you say. I had a couple of those. Not whenever I was young, but being grown, I had one of those. I was like, this is just bad. It's not good. Because I know how I feel, and I know me being me, I'm not going to be the same if I keep on going down the road that I was going. And it led to several attempts. So I finally kept on seeing this one therapist here in Wichita Falls. I saw this therapist for almost 2 years, if not 2 years. Went to group meetings, went through a lot of different stuff. They was like, you're 100% trans. But on the schooling, after you do that, you have to be on a year on the HRT programs that's out there. So let's say a trans person in high school, they had to really start out whenever they was in 6th grade, not only getting therapy and stuff like that, but then in 8th grade, they have to start transitioning. They have to be on a year of HRT. In some states, 2 years HRT. So that means that they start out whenever it was 5th grade. Then, on top of that, every month you have to go get blood work. Every month. And then, even whenever you start playing the sport that you want to play, every month you got to go get blood work. Every month you got to do this. Every month you got to do that. I remember in college being able to lift, I know with my feet, my legs, doing leg presses, about 800 pounds. I can't do that no more. Be lucky to do 300. Uh, and that's because I weigh that much. There's days that I go by and I hurt. And it's not because of the HRT. It's because of me doing stuff to my body that I shouldn't have been doing in the first place. I remember, lifting, like incline presses of 200 pounds. I had really big arms, really big arms. And I mean, literally now I I don't have that big of an arm. I mean, the HRT takes a lot of the muscle mass away. And it moves the fat into different areas. Yes, you're still going to have fat. And with HRT, like whenever and I can't take, or I can't really go to the effects of testosterone, but I do know with estradiol or estrogen that it moves fat into different areas. So I've seen a, you know, different context of where some fat is and some fat isn't. And so, yeah, whenever people say, well, trans people shouldn't be in sports, trans people shouldn't be this, trans people shouldn't be that, they have every right, just like any other person that's playing that sport. Whether it be trans males being on a football team or trans females being on a basketball team or being a wrestler or being this or being that. Now, the only thing that I do have a problem with is the safety of the trans people within the locker rooms. The locker room situation, yes. I think there should be four different locker rooms. One for male, one for female, one for trans male, and one for trans female. And that is for safety and also privacy as a whole, not as of just anything and everything. And I believe once we create that privacy and create that security, we'll see a decrease on other people saying, well, this needs to happen. And you'll see a decrease on the bathroom bills and stuff like that. Now, I will say it like this. There are predators in every sex, in every gender. There are predators. But you need to genuinely look at who you are dealing with before you start, spewing rhetoric or ideology that can hurt that person. I say that in all honesty. And I want people to understand, for the majority of trans people, it's not about you know, everything that you're saying. It's not about, you know, changing kids whenever they're in, you know, they're in elementary or they're in this, they're in that. Believe me, they already know that. It's about keeping a safe environment for everyone. And I want that to be the one thing that y'all can take away from this. Because trans kids are going to be trans kids. You're not going to stop them. Just like trans adults are going to be trans adults. You ain't going to stop them. It's about security and privacy for everyone. Much love to each and every one of y'all. I will see y'all on the next video, which is Avenged Sevenfold, Held to the King. I will see y'all later. Just remember 3 things: peace, love, and chicken grease. Thank y'all.
I got too many hoes. I can't hang you. Like to put that shit in your door.